Good morning, everyone. Welcome into Southeastern 14. I am Blayne Gilmer. Thank you so much for tuning in here to Southeastern 14 as we get rolling here with the news of Kalen DeBoer having hired Kane Wommack as his defensive coordinator to Alabama, the head coach the last 3 seasons for South Alabama, as South Alabama is, kind of working its way up in the world, and it's got into the Sun Belt and had some success under Kane Wommack in 2022, having a record season of 10 wins there in the FBS. Also, during Kane Wommack's tenure there, very good defenses for the Jaguars, and that's kind of where we're going to start off with here with Kane Wommack, and then we're going to tell you why his hiring is important, what goes beyond some of the numbers. But Kane Wommack, his defenses, if you average together the scoring defenses of the last 3 years, you're talking about a team that has allowed less than 23 points a game over the last 3 seasons, including the 2021 year where he was just kind of getting the program going, and they allowed almost 27 points a game, 26.9 points per game. So you're talking about really good defense this past year. Weren't as explosive offensively as they wanted to be in the past year, but they're hiring him as the defensive coordinator. So like I said, over the last 2 seasons, Kane Wommack has averaged South Alabama being a top 30 defense in the country. Also, he's worked with Kalen DeBoer in the past. They're familiar with each other, as Kane Wommack was the defensive coordinator at Indiana when Kalen DeBoer was the offensive coordinator at Indiana in 2019. So some familiarity there. And then the biggest piece, guys, comes with the familiarity and the background inside of the SEC. And we're going to get in terms of not only just the conference, but also the geographical footprint of the South. And we're going to talk about that right after we tell you about Bet Online, guys. Guys, Bet Online is your place to constantly go and get updates on betting news, odds, trends, predictions. And just like pro athletes never get to take a day off because they're always having to work on their bodies and recovery and get ready for the next contest. Even in the off season, they're still working and things. Well, that's the same way with Bet Online. Futures bets, specials bets, everything you could desire. NFL playoffs are going on right now. The NBA is in full swing. NHL is going on. You've got UFC fights coming up. Everything you could want right here on Bet Online. So Bet Online has all the sports wagering info available to you with both desktop and mobile access. Head over there to betonline.ag today and remember to use the promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV, all caps, BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, where the game starts. So where it all started for Kane Wommack is the fact that his dad has been coaching in the South forever. I mean, coached at places like defensive coordinator at Arkansas was Dave Wommack. Defensive coordinator at Ole Miss. He's coached DBs at places like South Carolina. He's coached at Southern Miss. I mean, he's been all around the South. Has the father of Kane Wommack, Dave Wommack. In fact, Dave was the defensive coordinator for Hugh Freeze for 5 seasons at Ole Miss, and Hugh's run there from 2012 to 2016. And Kane Wommack got to be a graduate assistant there at Ole Miss. Kane also played for a couple seasons at Arkansas before to Southern Miss to finish out his career. So you're talking about the state of Arkansas, the state of Mississippi, of course, the state of Alabama with Jacksonville State and with South Alabama. His dad having connections there in South Carolina. So I think that is a big deal for Kalen DeBoer to have a guy who has lived, other than that job that he had for a couple years there in Indiana, he's lived within the footprint of the South. He has these connections. And I think being a guy coming from a former FCS school in South Alabama that's been working themselves up in the FBS ranks over the years to take over a place like that as a head coach, I think you're probably even more ingrained because in the group of five, you're in on more kids. Okay. You go to these high schools and you're talking to coaches about more of their players than just one or two, like an elite program like at Alabama or Georgia or things like that. And you're even more ingrained with the goings on of who's where, talking to these coaches in high school, using them as resources, things of that nature, having closer relationships with them. So I think that's going to be a big benefit for Kalen DeBoer. Make no mistake about it. Kalen DeBoer and Alabama, they wanted Travaris Robinson. They wanted him to come back after he had taken the job from Georgia. I think they wanted him before he left for Georgia. It just happened way too quickly for Kalen DeBoer to get everything done and stuff like that, and he wasn't able to give Travaris Robinson the necessary assurance he wanted before he took that job at Georgia. Then they interviewed him for a long time on Sunday. As he was trying to get him back to come back and be the DC. That didn't work out, but I think as much of a sting as that had for Alabama in terms of being able to maybe retain some of its roster with how much everybody liked T-Rob there at Alabama, I think this mitigates that a lot because I think people are going to see a guy who, once they get to meet with Kane Wommack, some of those players are going to see a guy who's been around in the South, a guy who knows football, a guy who's leaving a head coaching position to come and be a coordinator there at Alabama. And I think they know that he's going to be, serious about keeping that defensive mindset there at Alabama and keeping the kind of integrity of what Nick Saban has built defensively first and foremost. So I think Kane Wommack is a tremendous hire on that front, and I think he'll do a good job on that. I've already talked about the recruiting connections, but the biggest thing that Kalen DeBoer and Kane Wommack have in front of them here for the next 20 some odd days, however long is left on the portal window that Alabama players have because of Dick Saban's retiring, is to actively recruit this roster back to Tuscaloosa. That starts with Caleb Downs. And as we are recording this on the morning of Tuesday, January 16th, Caleb Downs is supposed to announce a decision one way or another in the next 24, 48 hours of where he's going. Is he going to stay at Alabama? Is he going to enter the transfer portal? So we'll see. That'll be priority number one for Kane Wommack. You can rest assured. But I think a guy who has worked in the SEC, played in the SEC, who has lived in the South his entire life, and his dad has a background in coaching in the SEC and in the South his entire life as well. I think you're talking about as good of a hire as Kalen DeBoer could do for defensive coordinator here at Alabama. You know that Kalen DeBoer is going to bring high-powered offense. It was a question of, okay, how good is the defense going to be in terms of scheme? I think you're going to have a very good scheme here with Kane Wommack. And then over that, it's more about the recruiting, the relationships, being able to keep a lot of that current roster. I think that the defensive staff is what a lot of these Alabama players were waiting to see fill out. And guys, I think that Kalen DeBoer has hired someone that is highly respected around the world of college football, has a tremendous pedigree, and has shown success as a defensive coordinator and had solid defenses everywhere that he has been. So Kane Wommack, defensive coordinator for the Alabama Crimson Tide after leaving South Alabama as the head coach. Big move. We've seen Deion Sanders do this with Sean Lewis, taking him from Kent State, a group of five head coach, making him his coordinator. Now that worked out for Sean Lewis because he ended up going to San Diego State after that as the head coach. So this will be a opportunity for Kane Wommack to probably get a bigger head coaching job after this tenure at Alabama. But for right now, Kalen DeBoer has his defensive coordinator, and I think it was a very, very good pick. So, guys, Thank you so much for tuning in. Like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and let us know what you think of Kalen DeBoer's hire of Kane Wommack as the defensive coordinator for Alabama. Remember, we're presented by Bet Online, and we will catch you guys next time to talk more Alabama football and SEC football right here on Southeastern 14.